Hey Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. This is a special presentation, and I think I'll be trying to do some more of these videos. And what it is an interview. I got to interview Doug from Video Game Sage. You might also know him from Nintendo Age and Game Value Now. These are sites that were video game forums for collectors, gamers, and homebrewers. Video Game Sage is still up. Nintendo Age is in some form still functioning, and so is Game Value Now. But we're going to talk about his involvement in these sites, and it's going to give you a lot of insight into how some of these sites like Game Value Now and price charting operate. Also, what happened to Nintendo Age? What caused the demise of Nintendo Age ultimately, and how Video Game Sage came about, which is like I said, a community that you can join. There's a link in the description below for retro gamers, video game collectors, and homebrewers. Hey Playas, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. On this episode of Playas Guide, I'm doing something a little bit different, and it might be the first in a series of interviews that with different people throughout the retro gaming community that I would like to conduct. So the first guest I have lined up is Doug. You may know him from Video Game Sage, Nintendo Age, Game Value Now as Gloves or Gloves Off Gaming. You're also on YouTube too, right?
I am. Please ignore my YouTube content.
Okay. So I got a couple questions for Doug here because a lot of people in the retro gaming and video game collecting community might be interested in this stuff. So we're going to start off with Game Value Now. So when I first met Doug, it was on Nintendo Age, but he was doing some work with Game Value Now. So Doug, if you don't mind telling us what your involvement was with Game Value Now.
Sure. Yep. Happily. So I basically I joined NA first in 2017, January 2017, and I was just trying to get into the whole retro scene, trying to figure out how to intelligently or more intelligently buy the games that I grew up with. And so I was looking at different services like video game price charting, Game Value Now. Game Value Now was built originally by Rick Hogan, Hoagie on Nintendo Age, and he was advertising it. I think he added like a new feature or something, and I had noticed that the site just wasn't mobile friendly. It didn't work on your phone very well. It was like desktop only. So on your phone, you would have to zoom in and pan around to get through the content. And me being the cheeky bugger that I am, dude's on Nintendo Age. I'm on Nintendo Age. I sent him a private message. I was basically like, yo, your site doesn't work on phones. I can fix that for you. And so we entered into a happy little agreement where we worked together. And my primary job on Game Value Now was making it work on phones. So a lot of the stuff that you can see now on this site that's literally on your phone, I helped to build.
Cool. So I think people who use sites like Game Value Now or price charting, there might be some other ones out there. I'm not too sure what those other ones are. I really only know of the two and use the two. How is the accuracy of games determined, and how is that built into the site? We've talked before, and I'm aware that there's a manual tracking process that was involved with that too. And I know you may not have, built the search engine and that yourself on the site, but would you know how that was done?
Yeah, I have a pretty general insight into it. I did walk through it with Rick when actually mostly after he had sold the site, which we can obviously talk about later. But the logic's actually technically pretty simple. Really the hard part of getting is obtaining the data and cleaning that data, and filtering it appropriately. So really, it's at the time it was the eBay API, which eBay provided to people. You just had to make an account, and then you would have access to their API to pull data. And so basically, there's what's called a cron job. These run on a server at whatever time you tell it to. So he would have it running daily. And that's why you'll see a lot of sites like that. They don't update the moment a sale is made. They, once a day, usually in the middle of the night, because of server load, it'll go collect a bunch of data from eBay, and then it runs its own script over the data. Usually they'll do it in batches. So at the very least, if you don't want to get like reamed out from eBay and canceled entirely, end up happening. Regardless, you do them in batches. So you might do like limit it to 10,000 a night or something like that. So yeah, it would go get information at night. It would do some filtering, and there was some code that would flag certain things. So if he noticed, like, I don't know, the word Mario and the word broken or something, I don't know, some obscure example, it would flag it as weird if there was anything weird or abnormal. Or I guess if it said like Mario and Sonic NES, that's weird. It would flag it. And that would go into a manual queue. So he had a very simple web page. You would scroll through and say, yeah, that's legit, or nope, not legit. And there were other options like, yes, legit, but added as a different game, stuff like that.
So there would still be quite a bit of work in terms of site maintenance that needed to be done to keep a site like this running and up to date.
If you want the numbers to be accurate, yes. Or at least relatively accurate, yeah. For sure. I know too that there was also, and I guess the user's pretty open about it, so I can say the user's Magus, he's on VGS, and he was on NA. He was helping as well. He works now for Go Collect, and he still does, to my knowledge, some of that data filtering. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him in a while, and he hasn't posted in a while. So I'm not 100% sure, but he was also doing it. It wasn't a one-man job.
So for those of you that don't know, Nintendo Age, which we've referenced here, was a site predominantly for Nintendo collectors. And at one time, when I first joined, it was mainly NES, and people were dabbling a bit in the Super Nintendo and N64. But it became more of just a video game collecting and retro gaming community towards the end that was like sort of all encompassing and not just focusing on Nintendo. There were some other sister sites, PlayStation Collecting and Sega Age, but those sites weren't too busy, and a lot of that traffic was still on Nintendo Age. So now Go Collect, which Doug also referenced, is a comic book collecting based website and community that bought Nintendo Age, and they also bought Game Value Now. Do you know why? Is there a reason Game Value Now was sold? And when it was purchased, you worked with Go Collect on the Game Value Now site. What were the plans for Game Value Now? Like what did they do? What has changed since the sale?
Yeah, so I guess I mean the simplest explanation of why it was sold was that Rick he got a new job and he wasn't able to work on it so much, so he was pretty open to selling. As for why they would want to buy it, frankly, the same reason they bought Nintendo Age is they thought that it would be a good source of data. They wanted to take the existing data realistically and filter it into their own tools. I've not actually personally seen anything come of that. They seem to have pivoted a little bit. They still have some video game, like obviously GVN is still up. and they do Go Collect has like a blog for video games, but I've not seen the tools that they were promising at the time. But anyway, that's maybe besides the point. But yeah, they wanted the data. That was why they wanted to buy it, was to obtain the data from Game Value Now and Nintendo Age, to feed their own tools so that they could do the exact same thing as what they do on their comics.go collect site. They run a subscription service. Basically, you pay a monthly subscription or yearly, whatever, to have access to more data about stuff. I think there's some simple stuff you can get for free, but nothing very in-depth.
So when Nintendo Age was purchased, what was your involvement with that? Because you did get involved for a bit, and you had mentioned before to me that you had thought about and trying to save the site, but there were some issues with that. So in your opinion, what sort of caused the demise of Nintendo Age? Because it was a few things that came together, and it just things didn't quite work out.
Yep. Yeah. So I can speak to that for sure. Basically I was actually excited when Go Collect came on, or came in. It was weird. I wasn't happy about the announcement, as I don't think anyone really was. It was just a very sudden. Yeah, I mean, I guess for anyone not familiar with the exact situation, basically one day we're all minding our business, just chatting on the forum as the usual. And there's a post. The staff were not notified of this. I was on staff at the time on Nintendo Age, just helping out. They only had moderators, so I think I was a moderator. It's been a while, but yeah, just helping out on the site. And suddenly, with zero notice ahead of time for anyone involved at all, including the admins, there was a post from Jeff, the owner of Go Collect, saying, "Hey guys, I own this place now." And then like an hour or two later, I think, Dane popped in and was like, "Hey guys, it's true. Really excited about this." And I'm like, "Of course you are. You sold all your shit and you're fucking off out of there." I apologize if there's no swearing on this. You can.
No, it's okay.
Cut.
It's an adult. It's an adult.
It's an adult
sort
channel.
Of
Good
channel. I mean, we don't try to make adult content or anything on here, except for if you want to go check out my OnlyFans page. But otherwise,
I need that link. Yeah.
Otherwise, pretty much anything goes for the most part.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, a bunch of people were pissed. Everyone was pissed, really, because that's like the stupidest, worst possible way you could announce new ownership of a whole ass community. So yeah, that was a bit of a bomb on the entire community. But some of us were still hopeful because, frankly, Dane is the previous owner of Nintendo Age. You may know him from the Carolina collection of graded video games that your viewers may have seen or sold or bought.
Yeah, that's the first collection that I became aware of pedigrees within the collecting community. Kind of makes sense, I guess, to have that, but at the end of the day, a lot of it doesn't really matter, right? Once it's in your collection, it's more so about owning it and the condition. But it is, I guess it's interesting to have a little bit of history behind each game if you can.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that the people buying those things, I think they're buying it for the fact that it has history, perhaps, not so much for that the history itself is important to them. Like, I don't have any judgments. You can buy what the hell you want.
Yeah. Well, we know it was from a collection that would have been fairly well curated, right? So that that might
it's going to be good stuff at the very least. Yeah. I personally wouldn't want anything from Dane. Dude was not the most receptive to help and stuff. Like I offered to him, and that was actually part of why I got on the Nintendo Age staff in the first place. Was like I was like, "Hey, I can help out. Let me help out." And then it was supposed to be like, "Yeah, I can help on the site," and he just stopped responding. as he seems to have done to a lot of people. But regardless, anyway, I don't want to shit on Dane too hard, but well, maybe I do. Yeah, so the whole thing was sold and it was a bombshell. No one knew about it. Like I said, it's very important to note that none of the staff knew. BA, VGD, these are admins over on Nintendo Age.
Now,
Nobody knew.
what about K Thrower?
K Thrower might have
He might
known.
have known.
I don't know. I don't know. Perhaps anyone involved at WADA might have known because they were all chummy, as far as I'm aware, with the Go Collect guys, because they were talking with Go Collect, Heritage Auctions, and everyone else about getting all of that set up. So they may have known. If they did, they didn't say anything. I don't recall the conversations. There was a thread in the staff section that was like, what the fuck? And I seem to recall everyone saying, yeah, I had no clue. I don't recall if they spoke up. They weren't particularly active at the time. They were very busy with WADA, I'm sure.
So I can't remember names specifically, but I think there was a few members that did know and had like the option to buy Nintendo Age a year or so prior, maybe not quite a year. So a few people knew that Dane was looking to get out, but I think what happened was the offer from Go Collect was significantly more than any, and also the option to sell his entire collection and everything all in one go was a little bit more enticing than whatever the few members of the community in the know were able to kind of scrape together.
Yeah, no one was offering Dane anywhere near enough money to buy a Nintendo Age. It wasn't worth his time to offload the site. So yeah, and he did, to my knowledge, he didn't really do much of anything even with regard to handing it off to Go Collect either. To your question earlier about the kind of downfall of the site, honestly, like Go Collect's, they're not in the build a community business. They're in the sell you a subscription business, and like, good on them. Fine, they're a business. They're a full on business. They have employees. They go to conventions. They sell shit. They have this subscription service. Making money is their goal. So fine, I can't really fault a business for wanting to make money. And I think honestly that from the information that I am aware of anyway, Dane would have, like, the whole site went down. The servers that were running Nintendo Age were being decommissioned, and myself and other people on staff, our technical people, the site was running, if I recall, on an AWS server, an Amazon Web Services, if that's the acronym, on an Amazon server, but it was from like 2001. So these things go away. They get decommissioned. They get taken down eventually. Obviously, it takes like 20 years before they need to do it, but it was a case where they needed to do it. Now, anyone who was running on that that hardware rather, was notified of it about a year prior to the sale of Nintendo Age. Dane would have gotten a message saying, hey, this is going to go down. It's going to disappear. FYI, please move your stuff off of this server onto something more reliable and newer. And he either didn't get the message because it was on a 20-year-old email, or he got the message and ignored it. I don't know. Obviously, I have no insight into that. But yeah, if I was Go Collect, I'd be pissed. Because they bought a thing that was imminently going to be destroyed, basically. And so then there was a final notice, and they did get the email. So I suppose Dane should have gotten the email, because I guess he handed over the email associated with that, or transferred ownership. So Go Collect ended up getting the, hey, here's your final notice email a week before it happened. And yeah, they had to scramble.
Okay, so I take it with Nintendo Age, imminent doom, just knocking at the door, and all the members sort of in a panic. Here's where you came in with video game Sage, and I think I was in like the first 40 or 50 people to join the site. Now I know I'm not the most active now, but towards the end of the Nintendo age, I was sort of becoming less and less active in the forum just because of everything else going on in life. And actually, one of the reasons I started up Playas Guide was because of how much information was being lost when Nintendo Age was gone. And I wanted to try to pass some of that on to newer collectors, because there's a lot of new YouTubers and collectors out there that they kind of make me cringe, where there's, they want to do something great, but there's not, I don't want to say not the passion, because the passion's there, but the experience and knowledge isn't. And that's something that a site like Nintendo Age could have, you're on that site for a year and you would have been able to access all of that and learn so much. Yeah. And it's not really out there anymore. So I wanted to try to pass some of that on, and I saw, there's this sort of void online, that needed filling, and you saw that as well because, Nintendo Age was coming to an end. So could you talk a little bit about how Video Game Sage came about?
Yeah, of course. So I'll segue into that from kind of the end, I suppose, of the last thing I was talking about. So basically, I was working directly with GoCollect. I was a freelance consultant for them. So I was like, you could say on the payroll. They were paying me money to do things for them. One of the things that got me in that position, for me personally, was that they said, you'll be working on Game Value Now and on Nintendo Age. You'll have access to change Nintendo Age and update it, keep it going, fix things that are bugging the users. And that very much appealed to me. I wanted to keep Nintendo Age going, keep it fresh, keep it alive as long as humanly possible. I was very excited about this. To the point that I did a bunch of research and brought forward the idea of, hey, there's new forum software. I think that for a number of reasons, I had a bunch of presentation stuff and everything, like security. The site didn't have HTTPS. There was no SSL certificate. It wasn't very secure. Your data was very easily hackable. The site wasn't modern. It wasn't responsive. Same thing as Game Value Now. If you're on your phone, you have to like zoom in and move around and stuff. It's very annoying as a user. So it was just, I felt that it was time, the best possible time to change things is when ownership has changed. So I brought this to them after having already been brought on and told, you're going to work on Nintendo Age. The tune kind of changed a little, I feel, where it was now, well, no, we just want to keep the site up and running. We want people to be able to access Nintendo Age and use it, but we don't want to make any significant changes to it. We want to add advertisements to it. They added banner ads to it, which everyone loved, of course. But yeah, so I had done all of this research into modern forum software, including the ability to like move over all the posts and everything from Nintendo Age to a more modern software. It would have cost $1,000 to move things to the system we're using on VGS. Maybe a little more because of archival data. There's a lot of data on Nintendo Age, but the base price is $1,000. I think it's incredibly reasonable to move Nintendo Age to a new forum software. That would be fucking easy. So I did all that research, and that's why it was quite easy and quick for me to end up putting up VGS when things went sour. To be frank, yeah, the news about the decommissioning of the server came up. We were notified of it. And then they decided to put up, what you see now on Nintendo Age. which is a mess. It's perfectly useless. Um, and yeah, I honestly, I was upset. That's the real truth. At the end of the day, is I was upset that I was brought on to work on Nintendo Age and Game Value Now, and when the absolute need for moving it to a new forum software came up, it was just I wasn't notified. I wasn't asked for my opinion as a member of the community, as someone who had done research. Nothing. They just passed it off to their head developer and said, "Put this on a new forum software." And so he went and did that on his own. Just went and did it. No word to me. So yeah, I mean, I was hurt a little. I was a little offended, perhaps. And so it was very clear that the owners of Nintendo Age were in it to just have a thing on the internet, to leave it there. And I mean, that's granted, that's basically what they've always said publicly, is we just want to have it running. We want to keep Nintendo Age up. So, I mean, I guess, yeah. They sold it as that, I guess, but it's not a very exciting prospect. It's not going to go anywhere. It was dying a slow death already. So I was like, nah, this community needs to live and thrive. So I spoke with the staff and said, hey, we can do better. Let's do better. And so we did, I think. We've been obviously growing at VGS. We've been getting a fair amount of users. We're not like, we don't have, 30K users or whatever, but couple thousand users, and they're pretty active, I think. So pretty good. Because of the research I did, though, it took like a day. Basically, I was like, I'll get this up and running and we can have it up and people can migrate. We need to do this before the server is decommissioned, because we don't fucking know what Go Collect is going to do, frankly. Mm-hmm. They don't necessarily immediately tell us everything.
And then you also lose access to promoting that site, to letting all those people know who are active, hey, a bunch of us are moving over here, you're welcome to join. So yeah, I was really kind of shocked at how fast you were at getting that up, because it seemed like it was already sort of designed in the background for just such a scenario, when really that wasn't the case. It was thrown together just really quick, and it didn't look that way. Right? Yeah. Like, it didn't look like it was an old site that had been around for years, but it was there, and it looked new and quite polished. So I was impressed when it went up. So if people are looking to join a retro gaming or video game collecting community, or also there's a bunch of homebrew stuff going on there too, dev stuff, what can they expect? Like, for the viewers watching this, maybe they never heard of Nintendo Age or Go Collect or Game Value Now or Video Game Sage. What can they expect from Video Game Sage if they were to go visit the site now and maybe sign up for an account and become an active member in your community?
Honestly, I think that one of the things that I'm personally striving for is honestly casual and chill. Something that I've heard from a lot of people from a number of different communities. I won't name the other communities. Full respect to the existing websites and forums that people enjoy. They have great information on them. But a lot of the feedback I've gotten is that Video Game Sage is very accessible. There's not really, we don't really deal with or we don't not deal with like elitism and stuff. Like we don't have much patience for that. If people come in and they're like, you should only play NES. Like I could name with one hand the amount of people who are just complete dicks about anything before PlayStation 1 is garbage. I literally names pop to my head because there's so few of them. So I think that that's honestly a big part of it. We don't have that history. Like I can't go and, I mean, I could go and steal all the posts from Nintendo Age. Like honestly try and tell me that you own the posts on a forum. You don't. That's not how forums work, really, especially given the actual terms and conditions. But that's a whole nother thing. um, yeah, so we don't have a long history. Certainly, we lack things like that. Like we don't have Nerdy Nights, which is a guide to building your own NES game, stuff like that. We don't really have a ton of resources at the moment for stuff like that. But if people want that on the site, they're welcome to add it. We've added sections and stuff for guides and whatnot. By all means, feel free to bring it over, or create new things. I think I would rather create something new than rebuild the wheel too. But yeah, casual, chill, friendly is really the goal. Just not a bunch of dicks, just friends hanging out, talking games, building games, sharing the games, playing games. We have game nights now. Every 2 weeks, every second Saturday, we're actually hosting game nights. We played Among Us last week. We've done Mario Kart. We've done a bunch of cool stuff. We played Worms a few weeks ago on the Switch. That was fun. So yeah, pretty wide array of things, I think, honestly.
So moving forward with Video Game Sage, do you have any plans that you'd like to share with the viewers, and any idea what can be done to preserve the site so it doesn't suffer a similar fate as Nintendo Age and maybe some other forums? As we've seen, there's less and less forums out there, but some of the stronger ones are still around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. That's obviously like important to me, even just as a user. Like, I hated that Nintendo Age basically died as it did. It may as well be just sitting on internetarchive.com or whatever it is right now, the Wayback Machine or something. It's a bunch of information and it's archival now. You do lose the community and the ability to bring up. I think it was on our Discord actually the other day. Someone brought up a very good point, that forums, like, they might be kind of going the way of the dodo, as it were. People don't use them necessarily as much, especially the younger generation. But just like Reddit, for instance, you can't comment on a year-old Reddit thread. So that can be quite frustrating. You would have to make a whole new Reddit thread and hope that someone is willing and able to carry on the conversation that you found a year or old. On a forum, you can just go in and post and be like, hey guys, I see that this hasn't had any word in a long time. Can we carry on this conversation? I found this new thing. Stuff like that. So preservation, same as you with your channel and everything. Like, I respect that completely. That's the ability to access, update, and share the data completely freely, is very important to me, and I think to our users. And that's why everyone was so happy to move over to VGS, is that we're carrying on that kind of legacy of just sharing information freely with each other. We do have subscriptions, but and those are doing well. Like, people subscribe, so the site pays for itself. Full disclosure, in case anyone cares about this sort of thing. Like, well, I mean, first off, I have personally no interest whatsoever in selling the site. We've actually turned down a couple of people now, or not people, but businesses that wanted to advertise on the site. Like, I don't want to put ads on the site. I don't think the users want ads on the site. For me, like, I come at everything here as a user. If I think that the admins are going to have to shill for a company, like, I want to be able to talk shit, at the end of the day. If it's like, man, Heritage Auctions totally rigged these auctions, I want to be able to say that fucking freely. Like, it's hard to say that shit when you've got a Heritage Auctions banner on your homepage, being like, hey, everybody use Heritage. go sign up for GoCollect's subscription service or whatever. Like now it's like, ooh, can I say that stuff? Like I'm sure the users maybe can, but then it's like, and we've had it. Like when it was Nintendo Age, for instance, perfect example. People were talking shit about GoCollect, and they'd be like, "How do we stop this? This needs to stop." I don't want that. You can fucking talk shit about VGS if you want. If we're doing something wrong, fucking tell us.
Yeah.
And we'll try and pivot.
Nothing's really owed to anyone then either,
Yeah.
right?
It's all owed to the users. The users pay for the site. The people subscribing to the site are keeping the site alive. Like I edit the site. We've got Casual Card. He's a really cool guy. He's doing a bunch of art and stuff. He's this him and Bert. I think his name's Bert now. It might be Bort license plate. He's changed his name a few times, but our two graphics guys, they're really helping a ton to make the site look and feel unique. The Sage character is something that Casual Cart created for us, and like right now, for instance, on the site, there's an Easter version of the Sage, and I think that brings a lot of character to the site.
Yeah, I saw that. And then in the winter, there was snowflakes falling and stuff. Also, I do want to add that, we talked about the way a lot of forums are going the way of the past, with the exception of Reddit. And I'm sort of on the fence myself with Reddit because there's like, it's kind of all over the place with Reddit. It's too vast of a forum that you really got to find like a niche forum and stick to that. Otherwise, I find it to be a bit tricky to navigate through,
Yep.
and be familiar with 30 different communities that I'm a part of. I really don't know anybody who's on them the way that I did know different forums when I was on about a dozen of them. But Video Game Sage has modernized itself in a way that a lot of other forums aren't modernized, where it's like app friendly. It's almost like going onto an app when you're using it on your mobile device or tablet. It's not like we talked about before. You're zooming in always with your two fingers, or it starts scrolling automatically on you, and then you were typing something, but who knows where it went, and you left half a sentence up or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, not all forums, even some of the bigger ones now, have done that. But I think that's a good thing and a step in the right direction to keeping things alive. Also, we talked about this before, about how it's based on a cloud-based server. So
Yep.
it's something that did you want to elaborate on that a little bit more? Because I don't know so much about it, but I'm sure you can divulge quite a bit of information.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. It's no secret. If you go to like the bottom of the Nintendo Age site, there's a little message that tells you what software we're using. If you wanted, you could go build this. You could put up a forum yourself using the same software. It'll look fairly similar, without too much hassle. It's Envision, which is technically actually quite an old software, but they've been keeping up. If you've ever been on I believe an IPS board, I think they used to be Envision Power boards or something. Right now they're called Envision Community, and it is hosted on the cloud. I don't own the only. So there are servers involved, obviously, but it's using the cloud, which is really just owned elsewhere servers. They're updated frequently, so like year after year, month after month, really. Like I'm constantly applying updates to the software itself. Like there's security updates every couple months, maybe every month or two. There's updates to run, and you guys don't, like, users wouldn't even really notice it happening. The site just keeps chugging along. Sometimes you might get, like, if you happen to be on at like 2 a.m. when I'm running an update, you might get a screen that says down for maintenance or something. Usually takes like a few minutes. But yeah, it's all hosted on the cloud, running on a service. I have moved recently to hosting the images on AWS on their S3 service. It's a CDN, and that's a whole bunch of words that lots of people aren't going to understand. Long story short, the images are nice and safe on a service that loads them quickly and doesn't cost us an arm and a leg. Basically, I could have left the hosting of the images to Envision, but basically it doesn't scale very well. Essentially, the more images that users upload to the site, they all get put in a bucket. And the bucket on Envision, you essentially have tiers of payments where it's like you get this many active users at a time and this many images and this and that and the other. And essentially, if we passed a threshold for one of the things, you would have to pay for the next tier. So like right now it costs, I think it's the $70 tier. So it's like $70 US a month just to host the site. Significantly less than Nintendo Age used to cost Dane and Go Collect. It was costing them like $700 a month, which is why he would be doing like charity drives and stuff, which again, people are pretty upset about because like he took their money, ran a site, sold the site anyway. So yeah, basically we have subscriptions and people are paying in like $5 a month, and it's paying for itself. And any excess we're using for right now. We've started providing prizes for events and stuff. Like we'll have holiday events for St. Patrick's Day. We played, I think it was Tapper on the Atari, and so it's like I think we had a pool of like $50 for Amazon gift cards that we just gave out to the top participants. So we're able to start get that back. Not a single cent goes to any individual. I don't make any money at all on the website. I do have to personally manage it. I do have to technically run it as a business because it is gaining revenue. So I have registered. I have my own registered freelance business. So I just take care of the taxes and stuff. And it's all sitting on a separate PayPal from my own. It's its own business PayPal account, which I could, like, if I decide to fuck off, I've built everything to be hand-offable quite easy. And that's also part of why I went with Envision, is that I don't want to be... I've been through the past where Dane built Nintendo Age in a very specific way. He built it himself by hand. Sure, admirable, fine. Build your own forum, great. But when you're talking about a thing that you've been working on for 20 years, and then you want to sell it, and or not even sell it, you want to hand it off for free to someone. Good fucking luck. Because it's got a legacy of old crap code. Because it's old, it gets crappy over time. It's not been maintained necessarily. He did kind of fuck off for a good 5 years or so and not touch the website. So I didn't be in that situation. If I decide one day to not be interested in video games anymore and get into, I don't know, riding bikes or whatever people do that isn't video games, I can hand this off very easily to someone else. They don't have to be a web developer. Like I'm a web developer. That's my profession, my day job. So I do this regularly. Putting up websites is my day to day. But you don't have to be a web developer in order to manage VGS. So that was very important for me too. And that was part of the aspect of let's get a cloud service, something I can hand off to someone that has little knowledge. I would feel pretty comfortable. Like if I decided to fuck off, give me a week and I'll show the current admins how to run the site and they'll be dandy. It'll be perfectly fine. They would benefit certainly from bringing on another web developer to do some fun, cool stuff. Like the snowflakes you were talking about earlier that were happening in winter. I coded that. I built some code that made snowflakes appear. That's not a built-in thing. It's a custom thing that I did for fun. If you want to do fun stuff, fun extra shit like that, hire a web developer or bring on a web developer, and you can add cool shit to the website. But beyond that, you don't need to be a website to run a forum. And that's the way it should be. It should be the person with the passion about the video games should be running the forum, not necessarily a web developer. I just happen to be both.
Cool. So we can expect more from Video Game Sage, and Video Game Sage to be around for a very long time. So I'll put a link in the description below for anybody interested in checking out and joining the site. You've heard what Doug has had to say. He talks very passionate about what he's done, and you know that their community there has a long history, and it's a brand new site that has all the bells and whistles. Doug, is there anything else you'd like to add before we end this interview?
From my end, I don't think so. I don't have anything to plug outside of, like I say, like we have a pretty dedicated staff of very enthusiastic people about the things that they've been brought on for. Like you alluded to earlier, we have a homebrew team. We're trying to get people excited about homebrews. They've obviously become much more popular recently, being advertised. Like there was a Jay and Silent Bob game, so like people are being more aware of this. And these are just people from the community, man. Like these are people that we know and talk to, like on Discord regularly. So, yeah, I think that would be my only final say / plug is, like, if you're passionate about video games, there's probably something for you to do or talk about to join us on Video Game Sage. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for your time.